Hello everybody, my name is VideoGamezYo. Welcome back to another DashFight How to Play Against guide. And as you can see on the screen today, we have Kitana. So we're going to be doing a How to Play Against Kitana guide here today. If you guys don't know me, like I said, my name is VideoGamezYo, or VideoGamezYo, formerly known, and I'm a professional MK player and Shout Khan extraordinaire. But without further ado, ladies and gents, let's get into today's guide. So, starting off, we have the variations section of the guide. Now, this is just going to be me explaining a few different moves that are very, very good for Kitana, that are variation specific, and how to counter those moves. Here we have 3 on the screen here tagged, and we're going to start with low fan toss. And this is a very good projectile, very, very good. It goes across the screen. It's a low rather than a mid. As you can see, the lean is blocking that low. And it also has an extension, press amplify. And you can either choose to press just amplify and go this distance, just right in front of her, or forward and amplify, which goes a lot further. So as you can see from there, it will connect. But this will miss. So this is just for closing down that gap, getting that knockdown. Now, this can obviously be done from range, just to help our zoning game, or like a third equivalent for additional damage and a knockdown. Now, to counter this move, what you're going to want to do is that second hit there can be floor spot. Punished like so. Very, very easy to punish. And make sure you're always going to make her pay for something like that, because it is a very unsafe move. I believe something like -13 on flawless block, so very punishable by a lot of characters, like high damage combo starters. Even Melina could probably do her back one there, which is 10 frames, right, to punish that. So that's the way you're going to be punishing low fan toss amplify. And of course, regular fan toss or low fan toss is unsafe. Like so those are going to be your punish options for that. Aerial fan flutter is just a way for her to extend her airtime, essentially. It can also be used to extend them as a slack serve. The way you counter this is just by waiting, you know, being patient when she jumps. When she jumps, it's not as black and white as if she jumps anti-air. No. Especially with a character like Kitana, she has a lot of priority when she's in the air, you know, with her jump 2 and her jump kick. Even her jump fan toss. So she's got a lot of options. So because of that, you've got to respect those options. And if you wait, and maybe even flawless block, because you could do that. You know, you could even just block it like that. Or flawless block like so. So you do have options, but it is going to be just you being patient. There isn't like a... Obviously you can try and anti-air this, but it will almost, you know, more often than not get beaten out by her jump-in, because they have so much priority, and obviously her jump-ins allow her to launch ruthlessly, which she's what you've done with some solid damage. So that's that. And then finally on the screen we have Square Wave, which is essentially her aerial version of this. Not really a counter to this per se, but if she does this grounded, it is ridiculously unsafe. And I mean ridiculously. You have years to punish this. Years. You can even dash in and do that. Pretty sure you can punish it with Melina's forward 4. Yeah. And that's a 17 frame mid. Need to be in range for it though. Yeah. And if you flawless block it, it's obviously more minus. But yeah, if a Kitana's doing that, it might be a desperation to try and get in, or just a last-ditch effort to get some damage, or to try and chip you out. So if you do flawless block it, or just block it normally, it is very unsafe, so make sure you're punishing that. But in terms of variation-specific moves, I think those 3 are going to be seeing the most. There are some other ones that are a bit more niche, but because they're more niche, I have not included them. So yeah, those 3 I think are a good basis to start for her variation-specific moves and how to counter them.
Become DashFight's supporter on Patreon and get a chance to win a coaching session with a pro player. Click the link in the description.
So now we're going to be moving on to problem moves and how to counter those. Now this section is going to be a lot shorter because there's fewer moves. Kitana doesn't really have that many moves outside of her projectiles that I've already mentioned, one of them in low Phantos, and her jumping, which we're going to go on to now a bit more, and another move that she has that contributes to her projectile game. So to start, we're going to be doing fan stab down 4. Now, if this is blocked, you will see if I set Melina to stance hold and duck, very, very good pushback. So if she is abusing this on you, it's often that she will see you do this. She'll see you try and respond, and then go for her own mid attack because of this pushback. So if you have a very poor range mid attack, like Melina does, yes, you can interrupt, but if you interrupt straight away, like so, if you wait a second, you'll do it. But if you do it straight away, you're going to get punished. And obviously, I didn't do the combo there, but you can just go into a full combo here. If I block that, like you can see there, I have to take all of this damage. So that pushback can sometimes be a bit tricky to counter. Let me get Melina off of ducking here. Just get her to stand on me. So yeah, it can be a bit tricky. So make sure that to counter this, what you want to do is, if she's abusing this, walk back completely to reset the situation, or use a forward advancing attack. So in Melina's case, you've got forward 1 or forward 4. So I will demonstrate that now. So I'm going to do the same thing. If I record this. Excuse me. As you can see here, you do a sweep. You can do forward 4. You can do forward 1. The world really is your oyster. Just make sure you're not doing an attack with poor range. It's basically the best way to counter this. It can also be special cancelled into her fan moves, which make it very good. So be sure to mix up whether you're going to go for it. You know, a button or walking back, or you could just block, because if she goes for something like this, as I'll demonstrate, it's obviously unsafe, as I mentioned to you earlier. It's going to be flawless blocked if you're just a bit patient. So, and if she is doing this, make sure that you're punishing as hard as you can with your most damaging tools. For example, Melina could use her crushing blow, but that is just an example. You don't have to use that. Just make sure you're doing as much damage as you can to de-incentivize her from going for something like this. Denian Strike is pretty simple. It's just a jump 2. There aren't many counters to this because it's such a good anti-air. You can, sorry, such a good jump in. You can anti-air it, of course, but it's very difficult, and I wouldn't recommend doing that 9 times out of 10. What I would recommend, though, is just respecting the jump in and blocking most of the time. Or, if you really want to counter it and get some damage, you can flawless block it. Like so. And obviously get damage that way, because you obviously can stop her from wanting to jump as much as she would do, because they're so good with her jump-ins, by comboing her and dealing damage, especially for flawless block, because, you know, that's uncounterable if you flawless block. So flawless blocking is pretty much your only option here. Otherwise, be patient and just walk back and try and trip guard, I guess, would be the best options here. And then lastly, we have fan toss, which, you know, another pretty self-explanatory one. Complements her low fan toss very well because we occupy different areas of the screen. But for this one, obviously, if you want to try and approach her, just duck and walk in and be very patient and choose your opportunity to strike, essentially. Don't get hit by a lot of these. As you can see on block, they do decent chip damage, but on hit, they obviously do much more damage. So you're not going to want to get hit by these. If the amplified lands, you get sent full screen, and it does 11%. So you don't want that to happen. Also on block, I think it's important to note that these are also unsafe. You can see the regular one is unsafe, and her amplified one is unsafe. As you can see there. So make sure that you're punishing her for going for these at close range, in addition to punishing her low fan toss and amplify with flawless block, like I mentioned before. But those are some problem moves and some ways to get past them. Right, so this section is going to serve as a bit of a recap for everything I've mentioned in terms of how to counter all of Kitana's main threats. So we're going to start off again with low fan toss. Remember, the regular version of this and the amplified version of this are both punishable. You can see here, if we go for the amplified version as well, you can obviously flawless dodge this, and punishments whatever you wish. Make sure to do the most damage you possibly can. You can do whatever combo you wish. In Melina's case, she does a lot of damage with her crushing blows against this. Straight fan toss, punishable from very good range if you've got the right buttons to do so. And the mid, no matter how much it's delayed, you can punish it all the time, so make sure that you're punishing those. Her jump-ins, make sure you're being patient, and you're mixing up whether you go for anti-air options, trip guard options, which is just walking backwards and letting the jump-in whiff, as I will demonstrate here. Just change variations real fast. But yeah, let's record Kitana doing a jump-in, just a standard jump-in, trip guard. You're there, you back up, you trip guard. It's a bit finicky on when you can do this, because obviously her jump-ins are very good, but very easy to trip guard if you're on your toes. So that's one way of countering those. And then we also have her down 4, which, as I mentioned, you obviously has pushback that you can contest with long range buttons and far reaching mid strings to stop her from just essentially spamming it and making it very difficult for you to approach her, because that's what she doesn't want you to do. She wants to keep you at bay with her projectiles and her long range tools. So those are essentially the main ways you're going to counter all of her main threats. Let's screen for the matchup section. Now, this isn't a very complicated section, because I would say Kitana does okay against most of the cast, but okay is the max I would put it. Because of the fact that she's so good at, keeping your opponent away with good, strong projectiles, a long range down 4, long range mid attacks, good jumping attacks, it can obviously, be frustrating to try and get in on her. However, other characters do that, and then more than that, better than she does. A very obvious example is Sub-Zero. You cannot zone Sub-Zero out because of his Ice Ball. You trade with this, you're going to eat damage no matter what. You get frozen for a very long time, as you guys will know. So Sub-Zero is obviously building crushing blows with his slide every time he freezes you. He gets so long, and it's not a favourable trade for Kitana because her projectile doesn't knock you down like Cabal's per se, or Kotal's, like his Sun Disc. So Sub-Zero is definitely one that is going to give Kitana trouble. Jade as well, because her glow allows you to go through projectiles, of course, and that is the basis of Kitana's game plan. Spawn, for the fact that she, can be punished, for her low fan and her amplify of that. Her straight fan toss at close range, her mids whiffing on jump. Spawn does huge amounts of damage, so he will punish you very hard for going for those things. As a Kitana player. So these three right here, very good options. Shang Tsung, like my guide suggested the other day, very good zoning, can contest with Kitana, one of the choices that you would go for. Also Fujin just counters every character that zones very, very well. Seption zones are out very, very well. Cabal can jump with his mobility over her projectiles and make it really hard for her to get anything started, because when Cabal is up close, he is in there and it is very hard to deal with him. Scorpion, because of the teleport. There is a multitude of characters that do well against her. Not to say that she can't beat these characters, of course she can. It's just that these characters that I have listed do the best against her, in my opinion. Now, you may be thinking, VGY, you've detailed a lot of strong tools that she has. And indeed, they are very strong, you'd be correct. However, when someone is as strong as they are in one area, they are often weak in another, and Kitana is no exception to that rule. For Kitana, her weakness is definitely her up-close game. Very poor range on her pokes. As you can see, her down 3 barely goes any distance, like A poke should be reaching from here, but her down 3 does not reach, which is very, very poor. This is her fastest poke and does not reach that far at all. Her down 1, very slow in comparison to other down 1s. I believe it's 9 frames or 8 frames. Very, very bad on block. She also has very slow mid attacks. So the fastest mid in the game would be 9 frames, and then faster than that 10 frames, or as you know, a bit slower 10 frames, and then a bit slower 11 frames. She has a 13 frame mid as her fastest mid attack, which is not great. It means that she can be interrupted out of a lot as she's going for her pressure. You know, for example, if she wants to do, let's say she does a jump in into, you know, just a typical stagger string like that. It's very easy. You can react very late to this and still get the, you know, the interrupt, like so. And you know, because of that, it's very hard for her to just get things going if she's the one having to make the comeback, because she's the one that's normally trying to zone you out and keep you away. But if she has to get in on you, it's very difficult because of her slow mids. And then last but not least, I think the biggest one of her weaknesses is, if I can demonstrate it here, holding up, jumping. And this may sound very silly, but as you can see, if I just hold up here, I can really punish her for going for some of her strings. It's not just this string, but this is the main string that she's going to want to go for, because it's really easy to hit this time, and also just a great string. However, doing it on wake up, which a lot of katanas will do, is very unsafe if your opponent is very jump happy. And this isn't just on wake up. This can be after even a down 1 or something, just, you know, just something regular. You know, like this. Same thing applies, right? Exactly the same thing applies. So it can either be grounded, you can get knocked down and do this. This is probably her biggest weakness, because it leads to a lot of damage being taken, because obviously she's in a counter or punishable state, meaning she can be crushing blows, she could be wake up thrown for Xiao's throw KB, for example. If the opponent has fatal blow, she can be punished with that. Like, there's a lot of things that could kill her here. So yeah, I'd say that's probably her most important weakness. But just to recap, slow mid attacks, poor range on her pokes, and slow down 1. It's much slower than average. I think those two are the main things that you're going to notice a lot when fighting Kitana, because you will obviously notice this projectile vest that she has going on from full screen and whatnot. But really, when she gets close, this is unsafe, like I mentioned, poor range on her pokes. Down 4 can easily be countered. So you do have your options, like I've listed there, but yeah, those are her main weaknesses. So everybody, that's going to be the end of the guide today. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you made it to the end of the video, I would like to see Pink Princess in the comments section so that I know that you've made it. Let me know what you thought, like I say in the comments, and be sure to follow DashFight on everything. They are great, great people. And to be sure not to miss any more content from either me or any of the other great content creators that make things for DashFight, be sure to follow their socials, subscribe on YouTube, all that good stuff. But that being said, like I say, that's going to be it from me today. Stay tuned for more character guides from DashFight, and be sure to stay safe, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in a bit.
Death is assured.